the thing. Thank you, Field of Greens. Now, Phil is in the back. Phil is a new face to the Law Tube, a new welcome face with a delightful, uplifting, upbeat attitude and some amazing insights. And I love his accent. You all know that I love the Southern accent. And I've got something on the backdrop. I'm saving it for later so that YouTube doesn't copy claim the entire stream. But I've got a joke that I ran by Phil earlier on today. Phil, I'm bringing you in. Phil Holloway, Georgia lawyer. Sir, how goes the battle?
Hey, how y'all?
Now, I'm going to make sure that the audio levels, you're going to level out in a second.
All right.
How is the audio? I'm going to ask in locals. Phil, for those out there who might not know who you are, I think many of them do by now. Who are you?
Well, have you ever heard that song, Don't Trust Your Soul to No Backwoods Southern Lawyer? I'm a lawyer I grew up in South Georgia, but I practice now in the metro Atlanta area. I've been practicing criminal law for, God almighty, almost 30 years now. I've also been for the last, I don't know, at least 10 years or more, I've been doing a good bit of media. And so I'm now venturing into the law tubing with a lot of help from people like you and Eric Hunley and Nate the lawyer. And I'm sure I'm leaving off a lot of people, but you guys have been so helpful. I really, really appreciate it. I'm always happy to come on your show as well because I love getting to know because we have a lot of the same, obviously your audience is a lot bigger, but we have a lot of the same people that will, watch you, they'll watch my show, they'll watch Eric and Laid Back Law and all these others in the law tube sort of arena. And so there's obviously, it makes sense to talk with each other because that way we get kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, I picked the brains of people who I know more than me. I'm sending myself the link that you sent me so I can bring it up when we talk about this. I like to pick the brains of, the closer you get to the source, the more accurate the information and the more insightful the insight, the more accurate the insights. And so we came across each other specifically in the Fani Willis case because you're in Georgia, you're scooping things as they happen, and you are a Georgia lawyer who knows the ins and outs and corruption of the system. So I'm gonna pull up the people can find you, Phil Holloway there. I should put your links in the top as well. I forgot to say two things actually before. First of all, Am I became a YouTube member. I thought it was Am I became a YouTube member. I didn't know. I thought they turned off my members on. Is that on yours or on mine? We're not cross streaming, right?
No, because we are. We're cross streaming as we agreed to as part of our contract.
Yeah, cool.
So it's not mine. People join my channel. I've got three groups. It's small claims, I've got grand jury, and I've got superior court. Those are my levels.
Dude, but no, I think this might be yours. I don't think this is mine because I think YouTube turned off my memberships a little while ago. Either way, welcome to either Phil or my channel. Let's see what we got in the back.
Somebody said some members, yeah.
6 o'clock, by the way, we're going to be done. And I put what they call a redirect link in the stream because I was on the Unusual Suspects. It's a Patrick Bet David Valuetainment show that they got, and they invite me on, and it's just down the street, so I keep going. It's going to be a good show tonight. 6 o'clock, the redirect. But Phil, what's the news today? I'll pull it up while you tell us. But what's the latest coming out of Georgia?
All right. So you know how the other day or last week we had the big news about the disqualification order. The judge gave permission, for it to be appealed. We call that an interlocutory appeal. It's a pre-trial appeal because let's face it, when it's something that's really important, you don't want to wait until somebody gets convicted and you have to appeal each thing together all at the same time. When it's really, really important, some things get to be appealed prior to a verdict in the case. And so the disqualification order under Georgia, that you have to have two things have to happen. The trial judge has to agree that you can appeal it, and then the Court of Appeals has to agree to take it. Okay. Now there are some things that can be appealed pre-trial as a matter of right, but most things are discretionary, this being one of them. So what's happened is another co-defendant, a guy named Harrison Floyd. If you remember, Harrison Floyd was the poor guy who got stuck in jail for 2 or 3 weeks in the Fulton County hell pit where people die by getting infested by bed bugs. Literally, this happens in the Fulton County jail. He didn't get a bond. He got kept there for a while.
We need to highlight that because we talked about it at the time. There were not memes, but accusations of potential racism, since he was the only, as far as I know, the only black accused and was the only one denied bond. There was some sort of steelman explanation as to why he did not get bond, but do you remember what that was?
Yeah, Fani Willis basically said, well, he didn't have a lawyer and so nobody was able to come and talk. They could have arranged for him to have a bond, even though he didn't have a lawyer. So that was a BS explanation, in my opinion, by her. Finally, he got lawyer, and Chris Kacharoff, I tell you, is doing a great job. He's an out-of-state lawyer, but he represents Harrison Floyd. He was admitted, I don't know how you say in Canada, but it's Prohac Vice.
Prohac Vice, yep.
Vice, whatever. It with a Southern accent, it's Prohac Vice or something, anyway, he's admitted. He's got a local lawyer helping him out, but Chris is on vacation in South America. I won't say exactly where he is, but I did text him to confirm that the judge granted his motion to do a pretrial appeal, a discretionary pretrial appeal on a really unique issue. And the issue that was appealed, so they claimed that Willis did not have the authority to pursue a criminal case because she did not get a referral for such from the Georgia Board of Elections. And the judge held a hearing on this, denied the motion, but is going to allow the pretrial appeal. But once again, we still have to have the other piece of it. The Court of Appeals has to chime in and agree to it. But this is another really, really important issue. I think equally important as some of the other issues in the case. The judge seems to be erring on the side of allowing these litigants to take these issues up on appeal. And lots of things, this means a lot of things. It means that obviously there's going to be delays and there's practical consideration. But if there's one thing I can't stand is a judge who thinks that they're always right, that they can't conceive that they might have gotten something wrong. Some judges will deny these discretionary pretrial appeals just because they're too prideful. They don't want to admit they could have gotten something wrong. And if they allow the appeal to be done before the trial, it can save a whole bunch of problems down the road, especially if the judge did get it wrong and we have to do a whole trial. Can you imagine doing this case over and over again because the judge was too prideful to allow these issues to be decided pre-trial?
Well, I mean, if what's his face? If Nathan Wade was still in the file and still getting paid, I don't think he would mind. But back it up just a bit. Harrison Floyd was the only one of the defendants jailed. Do you remember for how long? I was trying to find the date.
Let's say 2 weeks, give or take a day or two. But this is a jail where people die in there on a regular basis.
It's mind-boggling. So this is the jail where there was the incident. I think Barnes talked about it, of the inmate who rat-infested, cockroach-infested, died, and it made the headlines. And so, and also just to back up one thing here, you say appeal of right versus appeal with permission. I mean, I was trying to draw the analogies under Quebec law. There are certain issues that arise where you literally, it's stop everything. You go right up to the Court of Appeal because it's an appeal of right. You don't need permission. And it's evidentiary issues typically. In this case, to appeal the non-disqualification, because it's technically not something that is determinative on its face, it required the certificate from Scott, which he issued, and then it requires the Court of Appeal, a panel, to say, yes, we're going to hear it, or no, we're not going to hear it. And Scott, thanks for the certificate, but it goes back down to you.
Almost. You get a 95 out of 100 if that's a law school exam. It's assigned to a panel of 3 judges, and it takes just one of those judges to agree to hear it. That's why I think it's more likely that that these issues will be allowed to be appealed pre-trial.
Okay, so that's interesting. So the certificate's been issued. It goes up. It takes one of the panel of 3 to say, yes, we're going to hear it. Then they hear it. Majority decision, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be, it's just like anything else on appeal. Normally, if you get a panel of 3 judges and 2 out of the 3, vote in a certain way, then that's going to be the order of the Court of Appeals. But then you get a petition for rehearing. You can ask for the, in Canada, I'm sure you say en banc, but down here we say en banc, sort of where all the judges, weigh in. And then, of course, you can go to the Georgia Supreme Court after that. So it's just the first step in the process.
How long are we expected to wait until we find out if the Court of Appeals is going to hear it?
Well, so we've got the clock is ticking. It's like 45 days from the issuance of the trial judge's certificate. And so now we're I don't know, a week or 10 days into the other one. Birdies tell me that they expect a decision from the Court of Appeals in, I don't know, maybe this week or next week. They don't think it's going to take 45 days for the Court of Appeals to make a decision on hearing the disqualification. But look, remember, Fani's taken up something as well. She had, before the disqualification, she had Trump and some others had several of their counts tossed by the judge. And when the judge tosses the a certain counts in the indictment, the prosecutor gets to appeal that as a matter of right, and they don't have to get permission. So I think Fani's going to be appealing where Trump and some of the other defendants had, I think, 5 counts cut out of the indictment already. So there's a lot going up on appeal here. Yeah,
those are the 6 charges as relates to the phone call, because they didn't allege with specificity what provisions of the respective oaths were violated, but they left in the underlying acts at issue, because apparently the acts are not the indictment, so you can leave those in because they might be useful for other charges.
Something like that. Yep, you got it.
Very cool. Okay, so that's an appeal as of right, and because if she doesn't, she either moves on with the file without those 6 charges, or the alternatives are she can they do a superseding indictment now, or do they resubmit everything for?
Yeah, she can. But guess what? If she does a superseding indictment, everything starts over. You got to have arraignment. You got to have all this. And so she's screwed, because from her perspective, if she doesn't want to do a superseding indictment, she probably doesn't want to go forward without those charges. And she doesn't want to spend the time to appeal. I feel like she's going to, I feel like she might consider a superseding indictment, but my gut tells me she's just going to barrel ahead with what she's got minus those counts, because she's just that way. You know,
well, she's still got how many charges were in there? There were like 40 some odd, or were there
I don't know.
She's still got a lot left, you know, so she's still got some more spaghetti to throw at the wall.
Plenty.
Phil, what was it? So I'm going to bring this up because I haven't looked at this motion yet, because you sent it right before we got started. It's not a motion. This is a post-hearing brief. Okay, so what are we looking at here? What does this pertain to?
All right. So, you know what? I sent you, I apologize. I sent you the wrong thing. What I thought, this is good to talk about. What I thought I sent you was the petition for the certificate of immediate review from Harrison Floyd. Okay. So what this is, all right. So there's a hearing. What's today? Wednesday. There's a hearing tomorrow. Donald Trump and some of the other defendants have filed motions to dismiss the indictment or parts of it, and to in some of the defendants have asked that certain language be stricken from the indictment. Trump, one of the things that he's challenging, this is a First Amendment challenge, because Trump is saying, look, he's got a First Amendment, and by the way, he's right. He's got a constitutional First Amendment right to speak about a particular political speech. That's the most protected of all kinds of free speech, right? It's almost more protected than anything else. But when you're talking about your beliefs about the political system, it takes on an extra sort of guarantee of freeness, if you will. And so to be prosecuted for making a statement, even if it's not true, you know, about something political in nature is I think First Amendment protected speech. And so he's raising that issue, and constitutional claims like this is a constitutional defense. I believe, now there are some lawyers that disagree with me on this. I've had conversations today about it with some involved in the case. Even there's not really an agreement, but I believe that this is in the category of cases where you don't have to, if Trump loses this motion, he gets to appeal this as a matter of right, because it's a constitutional defense. I don't think it requires a certificate of immediate review, but hey, the judge is handing those things out like Halloween candy anyway. So regardless, this is going to be something that either the defense or the prosecutor will take up the judge's ruling on Trump's motion to dismiss on First Amendment grounds.
All right. And that hearing is tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. That's my understanding. Yes.
Do we know if it's live broadcast?
Yeah, it will be. He's got, McAfee's got his own YouTube channel, and I subscribe to it. I'm sure you do too. It's going to be live stream.
I'm going right now.
He's got one for sure. I subscribe to it. He's got his own YouTube channel, Judge Scott McAfee.
And what time is this going to be on?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, but I'm sure someone in our chat already knows and they can tell us.
Well,
But
I've
it's,
just subscribed and I'm turning on all notifications.
well, you're going to get notifications every time he takes a guilty plea on another case or has an adoption or whatever, because he basically has his courtroom open to the public, which I think is fantastic, by the way. He has it open to
Absolutely.
the public through YouTube. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Okay, well, I'll see what time that streams at and probably get on it myself. So those are the latest. I still can't get over the fact that they did not, Harrison Floyd was held in jail for an extended period of time on these charges, where they literally let out, violent assaulters on police officers with zero cash bond. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
that's the latest coming out of Georgia.
Yep. So at least as it pertains to this, we've got she's got this big Fani has this giant RICO case going against Atlanta rapper Young Thug. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
Yep. So Young Thug is still going. They had to take a day off because somebody was sick, and the jail said it was going to take them at least 24 hours to evaluate their health. I'm telling you, you cannot understate how terrible of a shithole that Fulton County jail is. I'll tell you, I recently am involved in a case where they kept somebody in jail like 3 or 4 weeks after a judge ordered their release, simply because nobody would process the paperwork. And that's a case I'm personally involved with. Ashley Merchant, who is the hero of all this, the Aaron Brockovich, she and her husband, John, have successfully sued the Fulton County jail because of conditions down there. I can't tell you how bad it is. It's just awful, in my opinion.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm asking the chat to see if we know what time it is tomorrow, because I think we'll be covering.
I think it's in the morning, but don't hold me.
And is it in, should it go on the entire day, or is it going to be a shortish motion, like an hour and a half?
Well, there's a number of defendants who need to be heard from, so I don't know that it'll be all day, but it won't be an hour and a half situation. I think it's going to require a fair amount of argument.
Okay, amazing. Okay, what else? So for the time being, nothing more out of Georgia. The Young Thug, I haven't been following it. Have you been following that?
Yeah, and in fact, I had a guest on my channel the other day who's very familiar with it, Rachel Kaufman, and we had a nice discussion about it. One of the state's witnesses has, he testified how high, he was like, "Judge, I'm really high right now. I'm about to fall asleep." This was like literally under oath. And instead of like holding him in contempt or doing something else, the judge just gave him some water and moved on. Like, hey, it's just no big deal. We're going to let witnesses who tell us they're high as a kite, when people's lives are on the line, these defendants. I'm not saying they're guilty or innocent. I don't know, but I know that they're all charged with giant RICO indictment, and the state's own witnesses come to court and they're high and they say that they're about to fall asleep and can you give me some water, and the judge just lets them go on with it. How can you have any faith in the results of whatever happens in that case, whether they're convicted, whether they're acquitted, or something in the middle, when this kind of crap is allowed to go on with no oversight whatsoever? It turns us into a laughing stock here.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I haven't been. I'm not sure I want to follow the Young Thug case. It's going to be enough.
It's almost too much for you to. I mean, that's why it took me a while to kind of get into it, because they were putting lawyers in jail early in the trial, like during jury selection. They were putting jurors in jail. He's making jurors write essays when they show up for court late. All kinds of craziness happening. Lawyers are. Like, one of the defendants wound up going back into the jail and they found some contraband. So naturally they had to assume that it was his attorney that slipped him the weed or whatever in court. And so now they started searching all the attorney's bags more. And it's just crazy. It's just lunacy what's going on in that trial, but we could talk about that all day.
Well, who's the external counsel in that RICO case? Is there external counsel?
No, of course not. No. She's got assistant DAs handling that one. Yeah. In-house people that are paid a salary to be there every day, whether they're prosecuting Young Thug or doing something else. That's the way it's supposed to be. Fulton County has a full stable of licensed attorneys down there that are on their full-time payroll that can be doing all of this.
Are you up to speed on what's happening with P. Diddy?
Only to say that, yes. I mean, unless I've been in court most of the day myself. So unless something's broken, I am following that. And I'm very curious to see what's going to play out, because is this an overreaction by, law enforcement authorities, or is there really, is it smoke, or is there actually some fire here?
We're gonna talk about this also on, or at least we talked about it on the Unusual Suspects. Let me hit pause on this. I hate using Fox News. Barnes talked about it last night, and I love his insights for those who missed the bourbon with Barnes. Let me get this out of here. I don't crap watch this. There are a lot of interesting videos are resurfacing, of him with young people. But Barnes's take on this, and it's one that I share, is like, look, we don't have the info yet. We don't know what's going on. We don't know who's going to get charged. We know that there's been a bunch of arrests and raids, Florida and California. You operate on the presumption that Biden is corrupt, and any prosecution is going to be, if not, it might be legitimate, but it might be politically motivated, or it might be outright corrupt. A lot of people are suggesting, when you have people like 50 Cent saying, well, I'm going to, we're supporting Trump. When you have Kanye coming out and not supporting Biden, some people might feel, rightly or wrongly, that this is a shot across the bow, a warning shot to the black / hip hop community. Don't support Trump, and if you do, the Biden admin is going to come after you. And that's not to say I'm not defending P. Diddy, because the dude's a freaking weirdo. You see the videos that he had with his daughter's best friend that he put on Instagram, joking about having picked her up off the streets and adopted a white girl. Yeah. His business with Justin Bieber going back years, where they had what many would argue is a suspicious relationship. But that's it. So we have now raids, and we haven't had charges yet. You have any idea why Department of Homeland Security would be involved in this?
I have no idea why DHS would be involved in it. I mean, this whole thing started, as I understand it, following claims that were made like in a civil lawsuit, right? And the civil lawsuit was settled. So it makes you, this always raises a red flag to me as a criminal defense lawyer, when a criminal case starts as a civil case where somebody's trying to get money out of somebody who's got a lot of money, then it makes you wonder if the motivations in making these claims are legit. We obviously, sexual assault and human trafficking and all those things, they're very horrible, but they're also easy to fabricate those claims. And oftentimes, once people, I don't know, clothe themselves with the label of being a victim, then they start to experience people treating them like a victim. And then, they're almost elevated to being put on some kind of a pedestal. And so it motivates them to continue to claim a continued or additional victim status. And these things tend to snowball. So it's hard to separate what's true victimhood from what is perceived or feigned victimhood. And I just don't know, but I do know that when you're Diddy and you act as bizarrely as he does, you kind of invite this kind of scrutiny. So for the points that you brought out, this is not surprising that they are looking into this. It's almost like, who's that? Let's see, who is the other rapper? Help me out. I'm lost.
The one who's saying, "I believe I can fly." R. Kelly.
I'm having a Joe Biden moment. So yeah. So R. Kelly, that was a similar kind of thing. I think when you get in this lifestyle that so many of these artists live, where there's a lot of money, there's a lot of alcohol, there may be drugs, and there's a lot of attention seeking, not only by the artists, but by the people who are in their orbit. It's just a recipe for this kind of thing to be claimed.
You had the neighbor who, at least someone purporting to be the neighbor, says, "I never get my basketball when it goes over the fence because they're weird there." That they have allegedly busloads of young people being dropped off at 3 a.m. Stories that every drink in the house is spiked. Who was it? There was a young person, and I think it was Justin Bieber. It might have been somebody else saying, things were going on that young people shouldn't have been exposed to. There's a difference between Hollywood degeneracy or media degeneracy and sex trafficking, human exploitation, underage sexual activity. I have no doubt, no problem believing, or no reluctance believing that type of dirtiness went on. It's a hellhole of an industry. The question is, why now? Is it politically motivated? Even if there's legitimacy to the raids and to what's going on. But man, no, it's you go back and you rewatch everything. You know who Cat Williams is?
Yeah. let me go back for the, so you're talking about the hip hop, the music industry, like here in Atlanta, back to our other discussion about Fani Willis, they're really pissed off at her because of what she's doing in the Young Thug case, because what they're using is they're using lyrics to rap music and using it as substantive evidence of a crime. That's her, Fani Willis's theory. So she's made no friends amongst the sort of the rap music industry, at least as it pertains to here in Atlanta. But I think that this thing has tentacles. So I don't know that we can really say that particular constituency is squarely in the Biden camp. It may not be in the Trump camp either, but Biden doesn't have them locked up by any manner of means because of a lot of these prosecutions that they don't agree with.
Yeah, we talked about that in terms of using lyrics as evidence of crimes. No, it's wild, but now people are fishing through all of these old videos of P. Diddy, people who spoke out about P. Diddy. I think 50 Cent was one of them. Cat Williams is definitely one of them. And we'll see. Charges have not been brought yet, as far as I understand, right?
Yeah, that's the last I heard. It was just simply the
Raids?
search warrants and the raids. But the thing is, they were complaining about how militant and how aggressive these officers. And look, I'm former law enforcement, and I've served search warrants, and I know that that's no time for kit gloves, but it is possible to be too aggressive as well, because you've got to remember there might be children present, there might be third parties that have nothing to do with anything. People are presumed innocent. So while the officers do need to go in, and they need to be careful, this is not the time to be sort of soft shoe at anything, but by the same token, they can't overdo it. Now, whether they actually were too aggressive or whether this is just PR spin out of his camp, I don't know. But look, I have no trouble believing that they were that aggressive, because look, we've seen it in with respect to some of the people that were arrested that are in Trump's orbit. We've seen it in other political prosecutions recently. So it certainly rings true with me.
Yeah, no, there's was it Roger Stone who had the pre-dawn raid? You had the pro-life activist.
Yeah.
And I stand corrected. I forgot, his drug dealer has been arrested. Brendan, look at all these ads. This is unwatchable. This is unusable. Who is Brendan Paul, Diddy's alleged drug mule arrested at Miami Airport, has music sports background.
What's the date on that? Is that today?
That was yesterday, I believe.
Yesterday.
Oh my, look at this. See, everybody knows what I look up: gold coins, field of greens, and Preparation H. Okay, bada bing, bada boom. This was March 26th. Yeah, so yesterday. So there's one arrest, and there's a lot of suspicion as to why. No. Stop that. How do I get this out? Remove. And then there's supposition that Diddy is now on an island that has no extradition policy with the United States. I think so much is swirling. We'll see where it goes. Now, another story. Have you been following the Baltimore bridge disaster?
Who hasn't? That's so crazy. And right out of the gate, we've got obviously you're going to have conspiracy theories, and some of them are really. Some of them are like, well, that really makes you really think. But some of them are just so like absolutely so far from, they're just in la la land. But there are some of them out there that are like, now wait a minute, maybe is it possible? Things that really make you think. And I'm not usually one to easily succumb to conspiracy theories. And my core tells me that there's not much going on here. But let's just say that I'm intrigued by some things that I've seen.
Well, okay, there's various levels of conspiracy theory. It was detonations on the bridge that brought it down. I'll also show a couple of slow-mo videos of people who think that's... I'm not writing anything off, and I'm not laughing anything off. We've lived through times where if you don't ask the questions, you might be less informed than if you ask the silly questions, which, as they say, there's no silly question. But this is my personal favorite of the conspiracy theories. Everybody remembers the disaster in East Palestine was the pretext or the plot of an episode of White Noise, a Netflix television show that started off with a train derailment disaster in, I think, if it wasn't East Palestine, it was in a small Ohio town. I had totally forgotten about this. I'm not lending any credence to the idea that this is pre-programmed or whatever. Jimmy Corsetti, who is this guy? YouTuber, former fraud investigator, MBA veteran, conspiracy, pseudoscience. Okay. And it's fun. But he writes, why on earth did Barack Obama produce a Netflix film about a catastrophic cyber attack? Opening scene from Leave the World Behind. I totally forgot about it. And you have a ship that had been hacked that ran ashore, and that was the beginning of Leave the World Behind.
So look, I'm just going to tell you, I haven't watched anything that Barack Obama has put out, almost intentionally, but this is really, really a crazy coincidence. Now, it's my understanding that ship, though, is so old. It's not one of the ones that has the modern technology where it could be controlled remotely like some of them. Right. So if it's all analog, stuff, there's really, I don't know how you would hack it, but I'm no expert on shipping. I was in the Navy, but I was a lawyer. So what do I know?
And in fairness, I mean, there has been video emerging of this ship having other problems, colliding with the dock. I do want to show this one because I'm going to take that conspiracy one step further. In Leave the World Behind, the ship was called, or the vessel was called, White Lion. Well, the ship that crashed into Baltimore was called Dolly, and Dolly had this sketch from 1956. What's it called? It's called Lion. So, and it's funny. I'm not really entirely serious about it, but have you seen the movie Magnolia?
It's been a minute. You have to refresh me.
Oh, well, Magnolia is it P.T. Anderson, or it's not Louis Anderson. You got P.T. Anderson, who did Magnolia, and then who's the guy that did all of the Royal Tenenbaums? That's another Anderson. But Magnolia is the movie that starts off with a string of coincidences. The kid who's jumping off a building and he gets shot as he's falling down by his parents, who are involved in an argument because the kid put real live ammunition in the rifle. And it's got some of these urban legends, the scuba diver.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Paul Thomas Anderson is so Paul Thomas is Magnolia. Who is Wes Anderson? Okay, thanks, guys. So Wes Anderson is the cutesy one. Paul Thomas Anderson did Magnolia, Boogie Nights. Those are the only two I can remember right now. But the opening scene to that is urban legends. This blackjack dealer who deals a losing hand to a drunken patron. Patron ends up being a scuba diver who's swimming in a pond, gets picked up by the plane to put out a forest fire, and then gets dropped onto the trees and dies. And the other one was the best urban legend was a family, a parent and a mother and a father are fighting. They always fight. The father always took out a gun, pointed at the mother, but it was never loaded. The kid who wanted the parents to kill each other loads the gun and then goes on the roof to commit suicide. Wouldn't have successfully killed himself because there was a net that would have caught his landing, but the father pointing the gun shoots it. It goes through the window, hits the kid as he's falling down, kills the kid. And then the joke was that the kid was an accomplice in his own murder. I don't think the story never happened. I looked it up, but so it's one of these coincidences. Like, my goodness, it starts off the same way. When that Leave the World Behind came out, people were talking predictive programming. It's called the White Lion. Dali, the name of this boat, painted the white lion. This boat was going to Sri Lanka. On the Sri Lankan flag is a big lion. It's like gematria a little bit. You can make connections to numbers. Do you think your initial reaction, just an accident?
Yeah, because the simplest explanation usually is the right one. Now, that being said, I'm not going to marry myself to any preconceived notions about what may or may not have happened, because I've seen and experienced some really bizarre things where, in my life or in my career, where things that at face value might seem coincidental, but maybe really there was somebody kind of pulling some strings. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I mean, I've been a pilot now for since 1986. And so ironically, I like watching this show called Air Disasters, which is so weird as a pilot. Why would I want to watch that? But one thing that you always see in whether it's, a shipping accident or an air crash, there's always like a string of circumstances that add up together that lead to, it's not one thing. It's not like one little thing causes it. It's always a series of errors or mistakes, oftentimes human errors, negligence, very seldom like intentional, but it's always like this string of things that adds up that leads to some kind of catastrophe. And I would, if I had to bet money right now, I would say that that's what the investigation is going to, if you believe the investigation, but that's what the investigation is going to determine, is that there was not one causal factor, but a series of causal factors when you connect them all together that led to this disaster.
Well, I'll bring these up because this is where also I don't jump to these conclusions because look, when massive catastrophes happen, I don't know what the, how things are supposed to act physically, materially. Like you see sparks coming off the bridge, and I don't know if that's when a bridge collapses, what are you expected to see? Who knows? This is Marty up north, who I follow, and he admits that he's like, full conspiracy, but why not? It's sort of interesting to analyze. So, like people say it looks like it was detonated, like people thought with the Twin Towers. Who the hell knows what sparks emit in random places when there's mass catastrophe, mass collapse?
Well, aren't there power lines? I mean, there's certainly electricity running up and down that bridge because it's got lighting on it and other things, and they've got people working on it as well. So there's bound to be some type of electrification. I'm not saying the bridge was electrified, but there's certainly power
cables running along the upper portion.
Got to be. It's got to be.
And so interesting idea that it was an old enough vessel that it couldn't be cyber attacked. And I mean, I don't know how that works. If you can upgrade and have some sort of, you have to have some sort of digital system on a boat if it's going to be over. I mean, old is one thing, but not so old that it's not susceptible of cyber attack. Who knows? There are other theories that the power went out twice. They had a Mayday 5 minutes in, and some people suggesting power goes out, it gets taken over, redirects. Power goes out again, it gets cyber attacked, redirect, and goes right into the what's it called? The foundation.
Well, but so I do know this. I mean, again, I was a lawyer in the Navy. I wasn't a ship driver, but I do know this because the ship drivers taught it to me. These ships, you can't just stop them on a dime. You can't turn them on a dime. It takes miles sometimes to turn them and a long, long way to stop them. And so I can't imagine that in a very short period of time, 30 seconds or even a minute, or even more, that some outside influence could control that ship to turn it and make it crash just the way it did into that pylon of that bridge. So it just seems to me to be implausible that it was taken over by some entity that would have had time to reposition the ship so that it crashed that way. But what do I know? I'm just a lawyer, but we all have opinions, right?
The beams have, were pre-cut, had thermite placed in them so that it would do it. Like if you're going to do it that way, there's other easier ways to do it. We'll see. I mean, it's what was I going to say? Also, the thing about predictive programming, there have been train disasters, rail disasters. There'll be boat disasters and plane disasters. Hollywood, to some extent, it doesn't reflect reality. In that sense, it plays off of historical things that happen. And then there's just wild coincidences when there's that many movies being made, that many things happening, that many vessels in the ocean. It's not a matter of time, but it's, but I'm open to ideas. I'm not jumping to conclusions, more inclined to think a series of catastrophic failures and probably some construction designs on that bridge. From what I understand, it didn't have those, like not a guardrail, but something to deflect.
Well, you can, right. They put up, I forget what they call, but you can put up these barriers that, that they go around the I don't know, the pylon, the part of the bridge that was hit. You can put up these. It's almost like, when I was in DC a few months ago, outside all the federal buildings, there's these big giant concrete round pillars that are designed to prevent cars from barreling into you could put something like that around it that would deflect, any kind of a ship or anything moving at it. And if you put them out far enough, it would prevent this. And so I think that is more of a modern design versus that bridge, but
abutment is the word.
That's the word. See, there's always so many smart people in these chats that know these
things. When you reach thousands of people, you get an answer and a correct one in no time at all.
That's it.
Yeah, but so it's wild. It was wild to see it collapse. Like, when you used to make those popsicle sticks and you make ninja stars out of them, 5 sticks, you weave them together when it. Yeah. I don't have popsicles to do them with it anymore, but I'm just reading some of the chat. So we'll see where that goes. Now, Phil, how closely are you following the what I call the Shiat that's going up in Canada?
Oh, with Trudeau? Yeah, I've been only because you brought it to my attention since, and So I do know that socialized medicine is a road to ruin, and it looks like Trudeau is going full speed ahead.
It's a road to you.
It's a road to
Socialized
death.
medicine. It's a road to euthanasia. This is. I won't go through the entire thing because Post Millennial reported on it yesterday, and I had to go pull up the decision to make sure. Look at how these decisions are published. It's unreadable. It's unreadable, the format here. I'll highlight the sections, but this is a case in Canada where we've now legalized, constitutionalized the right to die with dignity, which I don't think many people disagree with in its purest and most properly applied form.
Sure.
Someone's got terminal pancreatic cancer and doesn't want to wait until, the inevitable anguish.
For sure.
Alzheimer's,
100%.
ALS,
100%.
degenerative.
That would be me. Yep.
Absolutely. And I've known my father-in-law passed away from cancer. I mean, he hit it well and didn't suffer for long, but Lord knows, like when there's no point, I believe, people believe in miracles, but at some point people say like, no prospect of improvement and it's only misery. We understand that. In Canada, the Liberal government passed this legislation in 2016. And while they're debating it, I don't know how it comes up. They say, it's unconstitutional, according to the Supreme Court, to deny this right to die with dignity to the terminally ill. Well, we don't want to deny this constitutional right to the mentally ill. And they actually had this debate. And then they actually said, okay, well, we're going to extend euthanasia, medical assistance in dying by their euphemism, to the mentally ill, but we don't want to do it just yet. So we're going to include an exclusion that was going to expire, the sunset clause, in 2023. They extended it to 2024. And I think maybe because of the political outcry, they've re-extended it to 2027. So they're not going to apply to the mentally ill under the law, but they're already doing it. And so in this particular case, which I'm enraged about, it's a woman. We don't know what her terminal illness is, as per the evidence of the case. Her father intervened to get an injunction to prevent her from being euthanized, saying that she's got autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and she made no evidence of what her underlying condition was. She had petitioned 2 other doctors' death panels for permission, was denied twice because of a split decision, and on third time got her way. And I just
she wants to commit suicide because she's got ADHD and what?
An autism. There's no evidence as to what the condition would be, and I don't think there is one. And there's been stories out of Canada. Everybody watch The Unusual Suspects. We're going to talk about it there, and you'll see it. But veterans calling up with PTSD being offered MAIDs, and then when the story broke, and this is it's a true story, government apologizes, says it's not supposed to happen. And then you had other people who have been euthanized, notwithstanding the fact that death was not foreseeable. So, like, even as they tally up these astronomical genocidal numbers, it's like 4.1% of all death in Canada is government administered. They divide it, dude, 4.1%, 13,500 last year. They separate. Death is foreseeable when death is not foreseeable, and they've been administering it to people where death is not foreseeable. They want to extend it to mentally ill, minors who cannot consent, and then there was a poll that showed Canadians support administering it to the homeless. I got to get the highlights.
So just anybody who wants to commit suicide for any old reason, under that reasoning, can go and get their doctor to help them do it.
So long as they find a few doctors to do it. And here, I'm gonna bring this back up. I got to show you the paragraph. You won't believe it. It was paragraph 38. So the rationale of the judge, by the way, the judge comes in and says, this is not subject to my judicial review. Later in these reasons, I explained the court cannot review MAID applicants' decision-making or the clinical judgment of those doctors and nurses petitioners involved in assessing an applicant's suitability for MAID. They're going with this acronym. The inability to review the clinical judgment of the professionals making MAID assessments precludes the court from going behind the medical assessments to question whether MV's sole condition is mental illness or disability. And they amended the criminal code so that people who administer it have immunity from liability, so they won't be charged for murder. But nobody's going to review it, so it's like a license to kill.
That's exactly what it sounds like to me. And while we all can, I think a lot of people, you and I probably can agree that when you're at that point and you're terminally ill, and obviously it becomes unbearable, that I think physician assisted suicide makes a lot of sense. But you also can see from what you were just pointing out, the slippery slope that we're on, and particularly when the government gets involved in it too much. The government can't do anything right. I had the post office here in the U.S. just completely lose something that I sent certified, something very important, and it's lost right now. It's very expensive, and it pisses me off because the government can't do anything right. So when you got the government getting involved in these types of very personal, very what's that? Yeah, I don't know a better word. I mean, these are very private kinds of things, and the government always gets it wrong, and they always take it too far. So if you accept those two premises, that then the government has no business really being involved in this as far as pushing people towards assisted suicide. In fact, the public policy ought to be to kind of steer them away from it whenever possible.
Well, and also once you realize, I've talked about this a few times, but we've also got some provinces up in Canada, Phil, who are amending their laws so that consent to organ donation is presumed, or you cannot opt out. I'm fairly certain it's presumed unless you opt out. The window to opt out is very limited. So you have a government with socialized healthcare is actually not a bad Freudian slip, can't provide it, cheaper to kill people, and then they can harvest their organs after they euthanize people. But I'll read the two highlights here. 45. They say she was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Her doctors indicate in the diagnosis that she did not have any associated development or speech disorder. However, he specified that she suffered from the following behavioral disorders: communication disorder severity and restrictive repetitive behavior. I mean, it's like she's autistic, has got mental impairments, and they're still authorizing it.
Yeah,
and then they
kill her.
No, that's it. And they explain how she tried twice and couldn't get unanimity on two panels, so they finally found it on the third one. Is there nothing like that in Georgia, right?
No, there's not. How do they do? I mean, is there like a specified way that these people have to be killed? I mean, is it lethal injection?
It's lethal injection. And in Quebec, they were doing it a little bit too eagerly. And in Quebec, it was, I believe, the third leading cause of death for a period of time. And then when the Daily Mail blew that article up,
what happens when this becomes a fad? And when people on social media are convinced, just like we've seen social media fads catch fire in other contexts recently, what if it becomes a fad that, I'm feeling a little depressed, so I think I may as well get my doctor to go ahead and kill me?
It's a fad. I mean, it's almost already happening. And how do you, I just say my legal issue is, how do you allow someone who's mentally ill, who legally cannot consent to certain things, or at least in theory, mental illness initiates consent to the ultimate, the judge in this case, it was so ridiculous, said there will be irreparable harm if he does not stay the injunction, if he does not allow the woman to end her life.
Oh my God. How about irreparable harm to the person who's dead? How do you repair that?
It's
not their loved ones.
It's wild. I had one last thought on that.
It makes your head explode anytime, my father, he passed away when I was 17. He was a physician though, and it was in the late 80s. And he told me, he said, son, there's going to be socialized medicine. We're going to get there. And not only are we there, we are more than there. I mean, it is entrenched not only in Canada, but also in the US now, but it is part of the way of life. And listen, here's the thing. People like to say, and I saw Joe Biden, I think you quoted him or somebody commented on a Joe Biden tweet today where he talks about the right to healthcare. Healthcare is a right. Well, so let's think about this. If healthcare is in fact a right, then if I have the right to healthcare, and if Viva is a doctor and I need what Viva provides, then I've got a right to use I get to use the government to force Viva to spend a piece of his life performing whatever healthcare I need on me, and it's by force. Now, obviously, doctors and nurses, healthcare providers, typically they don't need to be forced. But if you accept the premise that it's a right, then that means I get to use the government to force this healthcare provider to give me a piece of their life, whether it's 10 minutes or 4 hours for an operation or whatever the case may be. They can be forced to provide a medical service to me if it is my right. And so I can't accept the premise that there is a right to healthcare, because I do not have a right to force Viva or anybody else to give me any part of their person or their life.
Well, and I'll highlight the other absurdity. This was his tweet. POV, point of view. You believe healthcare should be a right, not a privilege in America. I just want to point out the obvious. This is an impossible photo for him to have taken with his own hand. What they actually did is say, hey, buffoon, hold your arm out to make it look like you're taking the picture. There's no way he could have done this, especially in portrait. Set that aside. And then I said, healthcare should be a right. Also, shut your face and take this experimental jab, because I don't know how you feel about that, but it's mutually incompatible. So you have a right to your own medical issues, but you must do what we tell you to do. That was the tweet there. Bringing this back. It's amazing. Canada's leading the way there. Netherlands is pretty bad. California has medical assistance in dying, and yet, despite having a similar population to Canada, has a third of the stats.
Well, making it legal for a doctor to assist someone who's terminally ill, taking that out of the area of murder as a crime, which otherwise it would be, legalizing that is one thing, but establishing this bureaucracy, and I can't find any example ever where a bureaucrat gets anything right under any circumstances. But when you create this system within a bureaucracy that is somehow supposed to police how physician-assisted suicide works, it's just a recipe for disaster. If a person and their doctor want to make that decision privately, so be it. Maybe it's the right thing to do, and maybe we shouldn't criminalize it. I'm with you 100% on that, but keep the government out of it. That's ridiculous.
Now I've realized how to distinguish here. The ones that have a private link are yours. So this is Amile became a member. We got Inside the Law, a bit better than Inside Jen Psaki.
Oh,
I wasn't going to make the joke, but the show is called I think it's called On the Inside with Jen Psaki. That's her the name of her show. Joy became a member.
I make it a point to tune her out. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. I watched a video of hers yesterday. It was painful. Dropping by to support two of the best minds in the game. So glad to catch this live stream. Great commentary and insights from Dear Woke Christian.
Now, can I tell you something about Dear Woke Christian? I know who he is in real life, and I've talked to him. He's actually physically located about, I don't know, at least his workplace is about 500 yards from where I'm sitting right now. And really, really cool guy. Thank you, Woke Christian. Appreciate that.
And now, hold on. I'll bring this over here because I got the ones from Rumble. Hold on. There's another theory about more tinfoil bridge theory, says Sammy. I just realized the bridge was named after Francis Scott Key, the author of the Star Spangled Banner, a.k.a. the U.S. National Anthem. Chilling coincidence. You should read verse 1. Oh, say, can you... That's by the Dons. Was it proud? The reason... I'll have to go read verse 1. The theories about it being an inside job in Baltimore are asinine. Jeff at Legal Vices covered it on his Maritimes Monday show. People are too cynical nowadays, says Mega Mo Base. Maybe, but you can't blame him either. And Snuffle Up, I guess S says, I just found out today I owe $39,000 for COVID relief. How does that? Oh my goodness, because I think people in Canada didn't, or I presume that was Canada. Was that a Canadian? I can't tell. People didn't realize that what you got from the government was going to be taxable. So the COVID relief that some people got was going to be taxable income.
Yeah, the piper has to be paid.
Oh man, I'm going to look up the latest going on in New York. You following what's going on in the hush money payment trial up in New York?
I know it got continued until, I don't know, the 15th, but I know now that there's issues with the judge and the judge's family. Is that where you're going?
Well, that was the latest from yesterday. Trump put out a Truth Social post that said the judge has got TDS. His daughter works for some political Democrat think tank, whatever. And then the judge issued something of a restrictive gag order as relates to limiting speech. I mean, there's no way for me to make sense of it.
Well, it was right after Trump came out and blasted the judge, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my that's what
Okay,
I
now I'm
understand.
going to shut you up. There's one thing that if there's one thing that really is a pet peeve of mine, it's these gag orders. I hate them because, we have this thing called the First Amendment. It's free speech, and it applies. More importantly than anything, it applies to speech we don't like. Okay, so if you're the judge and you're wearing the robe, it's just sometimes too the temptation is too great not to use the power of your robe and your pen just to say, I don't like what you said, so thou shalt be silent. And if you're not, I'm gonna throw you in jail. I'd like to see how are you gonna throw that defense, but anybody, how are you going to throw them in jail just for speaking their mind? I mean, it's not like he's speaking threats to anybody. This is somebody speaking their mind. They're giving their opinion about a matter of immense public interest, and to punish it with a gag order is just antithetical to what free speech in America means.
Well, but it's like I haven't been around the industry for that long, and you've been involved. I mean, I'm noticing them now almost like they're giving out candy. He got a
Yes.
gag order from Engeron.
Yes.
He got a gag order from Chutkin. Got to get like, are they? And Alex Jones had all sorts of not extrajudicial, they were judicial sanctions. In the experience of your practice, I mean, have they been giving them out this frequently in other files, or is this a modern phenomenon?
No, it's fairly common. And one of look, I mean, you got to get Ashley on here because Ashley Merchant, she handled a case. She and her husband John did it for free. It was a murder case involving it was a cold case murder of a school teacher named Tara Grinstead down in South Georgia, and they arrested these two guys who they believed that one of them was the killer and one of them was sort of the helper to just conceal the death. And the prevailing theory was the cops got it wrong. They charged the wrong one with the murder. And so Ashley wound up representing the guy charged with the murder. And the defense was the other guy did it. And we helped, and we admit that our guy helped, but he wasn't the killer. And she won the trial. She did it all for free. She got found not guilty. But before she won that trial, they challenged a gag order that basically said that nobody was allowed to talk to anybody. They weren't allowed to talk to the media and all this kind of stuff. And it went to the Georgia Supreme Court, and they said, no, the judge went too far, because we call this prior restraint. And it's basically the idea is that you're restraining free speech prior to it occurring. The First Amendment is more than just free speech. It also involves news gathering and in terms of freedom of the press. And so the press has a First Amendment right to try to talk to these witnesses and so on and so forth. But the reason I tell you this long story is to point out that courts, when these things are challenged, appeals courts are very open to setting these things aside because they are disfavored. Sometimes, however, the parties in a case will they'll ask jointly for some type of a gag order because they want some cover to not have to talk to the media. But whenever there's a dispute about it and they are appealed, a lot of times they get severely I guess reined in or even eliminated altogether by our appeals courts, not only in Georgia, but throughout the US.
Okay, that's interesting. Hold on, I just lost my train of thought. The gag orders, more common now than before. Oh, Ashley Merchant. Sorry, is her Twitter handle Ashley Merchant with a no T at the end?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's right.
I'm following her now. As she had it under permission before, I think she took it off permission.
I think she took it off. Yeah, she waited until the Fani firestorm was at least not completely, but largely over, and I think she went public. That's right.
She's not particularly active. Oh, this might not be. Okay. No, so they gag Trump. It's a limited gag order. He can't talk about the staff or their families, the court. He can't talk about any prospective witnesses or encourage others to do it in a manner that could interfere with the trial. I mean,
that's very specific. How can that not be unconstitutionally vague? I mean, how do you even police that order?
Well, that was one of the questions I had. It's like, let me see if I can pull up the final conclusion. I had it yesterday. On the one hand, I said like interfering with witnesses is already a crime unless you're Fani Willis. But here we go, Judge Marchand. Oh, that's the video. Here we go. Look at this. We got it right here. Okay, boom. Stop this, and we got an update from Snuffleupagus in Canada. We found out why he owes the money back. Here we go. This is it. Listen to this. So, order that his motion for restriction of extrajudicial statements is granted. The defendant is refrained from doing the following: making or directing others to make public statements about known or reasonably foreseeable witnesses concerning their potential participation in the investigation or the criminal proceedings. So at least it's qualifying the interference. It has to only do potential participation in the proceedings. Making or directing others to make public statements about one, counsel in the case, other than the district attorney. I don't know what that means. Members of the court's staff and the district attorney's staff, or the family members of any counsel or staff. Can you imagine this? If Mershon's daughter works for a Democrat think tank, has worked for other politicians, Trump can't talk about it? It's to me, it's wild. Or cause others to materially interfere with counsel's or staff's work in the criminal case, or with the knowledge that such interference is likely to result. Phil, can you make sense of that?
No, that's so. By the way, lawyers, yes, we are trained in the art of run-on sentences, and it's intentional. For those non-lawyers looking at this, yes, it's a giant run-on sentence, but it's also very vague, and it's not the kind of thing that it's not like you can look at something he says and compare it to what the rules are according to the judge and clearly determine whether or not he's violated the rules, because it is vague. And when things are vague, you got to put somebody on notice of what you expect of them in terms of their conduct. And if they're not properly on notice, then it ought to be unenforceable. Hey, that's just my opinion. I welcome yours.
Well, I don't even know what it means. And with the knowledge that such interference is likely to result. So if he puts out any tweet about the case, and then someone goes and says something about the staff or his daughter. But the last one here is making or directing others to make public statements about any prospective juror or any juror in this criminal proceeding. I mean, there goes the public's due diligence in terms of, looking into potential bias jurors, like we saw in Roger Stone's case. We found out afterwards in the Derek Chauvin case, where you end up with activists on the jury. So, eliminate all aggregate knowledge of the interwebs, finding answers that might have been missed by the parties. Phil, here, hold on a second. I'm going to bring this up because this explains why the individual over on Rumble owes back taxes. It's actually amazing. From Ontario, was off work, then went on CERB, now owe all of the money back because they say I was ineligible because I didn't pay enough the year before. Cheers. Holy hell. You think they would tell you that before they approve you, but and imagine not to make everybody angry, but the amount of fraudulent CERB that they gave out to companies, to people who will never pay it back.
I don't know what it's like in Canada. I'm sure it's similar, but we had, all sorts of COVID relief, and a lot of it was, I think, the right thing to do. If the government's is going to tell you can't operate, it's going to put small businesses out of business, then there ought to be. We have something in the Constitution called the Takings Clause. The government can't take stuff from you without remuneration, and so I can see why in some cases it made sense. But the way that they did it, like I said, anytime the government gets involved with something, it goes to crap, because the fraud was rampant. I mean, there were people that were inventing businesses, kind of like all Joe Biden's businesses, that don't have products or services that they get paid for producing, but yet they're getting this paycheck protection loan money, sort of a handout anyway. So full disclosure, I had some of that because it helped my law practice. The court shut down. It helped my law practice stay afloat, helped me continue to employ people so they didn't go on unemployment. And so there was a legitimate use for it, but to think that it wasn't going to be abused. And another thing that was abused was our the economic disaster, EID, economic injury disaster loan put out by the Small Business Administration, another government bureaucracy that was basically overseeing, just gushing out money, just handing it out hand over fist for a couple of 3 years. Wonder why we got so much inflation now in America. But anyway, the amount of fraud related to that is unknowable. We will never know the extent of how much money people stole from taxpayers because government incompetency in how they manage those programs.
Yeah, I think that the estimate was like 10 to 20% would be fraudulent in Canada. I think at the time it's the amount of fraud is just massive, at least potentially in Canada. But then they'll go and they'll bury citizens for retroactive annulment of monies that they advanced when the person couldn't work anyhow. I'm going into locals to see if anyone has any questions for you, Phil, and specific questions. Someone says liberal Hitler is redundant. I got it. Okay, Phil, I ran it by you before because I've been thinking it since we first met. Hold on, the video. Where is it? Did I shut the video? Oh, for goodness sake, hold on. The reason I didn't want to play it was I don't want YouTube copy claiming an entire stream, but I have to do it anyhow. Whammy Anchorman. I realize who I've known you for longer than you think I've known you.
Oh,
There we
no
go.
goodness.
Here we go. It's the accent is the same. He's got a good personality. Everybody, you'll never unsee it once you see this. Let me turn the volume down just a little bit here.
There at Charlie Lasers every Friday night. Champ here. I'm all about having fun. You know,
I can't. I love it. I feel like I've known you my whole life.
Someone's kitchen. Maybe go to SeaWorld, take my pants.
Okay, well, except
off.
for that part.
Anyway, I
get to the signature whammy.
My signature catchphrase, whammy, as in Gene Tennis at the plate. Whammy.
I'm gonna watch this movie again tonight. I hope
I've got to watch Anchorman's the best.
It's you have to have the accent is from the same place, so there's no question.
So whammy should be my catchphrase, kind of like you have booyah, right?
I think so. I think
I wonder what the chat thinks about. Should whammy be my? Maybe I'll do a poll. Should whammy be my catchphrase?
Do it. Let's say put a yes for yes and an N for no, but I think it goes without saying.
So do I need to get the sideburns that are down to about here?
I don't think you need to go quite that far, but a hat. You can get the hat and it'll be.
Well, I mean, I went to law school in Texas, and I dressed the part. I'm not opposed to wearing a hat at the right time. Learned how to do the Texas two-step and all that.
Well, I mean, but it's the accent and it's split. It seems split 50-50, but I'm wondering if my chat is saying yes and your chat is saying no. Now the yes is a pile.
I could see both of them. Somebody in the chat said whammy used to mean.
It's the funny thing, it's an amazing thing. So YouTube seems to be 50-50 split, and over on Rumble, it's 100%. I have not seen a no yet. So
all right, well, I will take that under advisement.
Now, Phil, hold on. Did I forget any subject matter that we had to cover here? I think that's about it. What are you working on these days?
Fanny, we got the bridge. We got death panel.
Hold on. We could at least now watch Andrew Tate's video. Has everyone seen this? I'm telling you, look, I'm a neurotic hypochondriac. Has everybody seen his ad? Is funny. I mean, it's funny. I'm just not sure that. Okay, this is the ad, people. Andrew Tate has a supplement.
Fireball makes a piss yellow, like a manly yellow piss.
It's so stupid.
None of that clear water, gay little girl piss, man's piss. And the reason for that is very simple. We have all of the vitamins, minerals, and amino acids the body can need in one convenient scoop of Fireball.
He's got more than the body can handle.
Like a man, excessive. Are you the kind of person who's going to take a supplement which tastes disgusting with no flavoring whatsoever? Or you're going to be the kind of man who takes a supplement that tastes like cookie crumble and your pee's not even yellow because there's only a little bit of vitamins in it. Oh, but I've only got my daily recommended allocation of vitamin B. Well, I'm scared I might pee out too many vitamins. Greta Thunberg will get mad at me for being wasteful. I don't want Greta to come into the gym and beat me up. Fucking gay.
Okay, we can stop it. I mean, it's very funny, but it might be an exhibit in a future class action lawsuit. Look, I'm a hypochondriac. I know it's oxalates that cause kidney stones, but I'm fairly certain having too much minerals, having too much concentrated stuff in your urine leads to kidney stones.
I'm not a doctor, but look, I mean, if you have too much of it, your body naturally eliminates it for a reason, right? And it's through your kidneys and it makes you pee yellow. And so if you got too much of it, you're not supposed to have it. Your body, I would say, listen to your body, right? But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy.
I say, look, I can understand how people don't find it funny. I'm into the childish humor. I mean, Anchorman. What are some of the other classics? Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. I just think that's how you get kidney stones. I as far as I know, from having a hypochondriacal mother who bred a hypochondriacal.
Have you ever had
son.
gout from eating too much red meat? And
No, because I don't believe you can eat too much red meat, but I've known people who've had gout from alcohol related. Like apparently, certain types of alcohol are more prone to cause gout. Have you had gout?
yeah, I have, but I'm sure it was because of red meat.
In the toe or in your elbow?
No, it's like it's in like the bottom of the foot, and then into the toe. And I tell you, it hurts, but it'll go away after you sort of have to correct your diet. It will go away after a while. I've had it like once, maybe twice in my life that I can recall, but it's having too much stuff built up in your blood. Yeah.
I eat a load of red meat, and I touch wood. I drink a lot of water as well, and I exercise and sweat it out as well. Was there one more thing in the backdrop that I had here? I'm not sure that we're going to play it. Let me see here. Hold on. Okay, that was.
By the way, you're much better with this platform than I'm just amazed because I'm so new at this. I don't have the skills that you have to.
You'll get the hang of toggling things. There will be. I was going to start with this, but then I thought it might upset everybody. If you haven't seen the George Takei video, I want to because. The reason why I highlight it, let me see if I can refresh this, is because I will call out the hypocrites of the world. I think this is not the right clip because we need to have.
He should be at the top of the list.
They're bad people, but the bad people have the audacity of calling other people who are not bad people. Oh, am I going to get the whole thing? Hold on. I may have to go to my.
I'm a Trekkie too, and this is one of the things that I always have. I mean, I grew up on Star Trek, and it's just, I mean, I'm a Trek nerd like that, and I hate to see
people
Mr.
ruin
Sulu
themselves
behaving that way.
No, but Zulu, you got Mark Hamill, who's gone full Trump arrangements. People have lost their ever-loving minds. I still get into it with the lead singer from Angels and Airwaves and Blink-182 because politically they've lost their minds. Here, this is it. No, that's the same one, for goodness sake. Hold on. Okay, I'm a bit of an idiot here. I've got to have the whole thread because otherwise calling out will not make sense here. Everyone should know who George Takei is or has become, but this is he faults Trump for selling the Bible and says Trump is selling Bibles and Fox is blaming the bridge collapse on our broken border. I could make an indirect argument for the latter, but whatever. There's a big sector of our society that has absolutely lost its collective marbles. And then I like to remind everybody who George Takei is. This was on the Howard Stern show, and it's like people don't know what this guy admitted to in real life.
All your years involved with, you never hassled anybody or grabbed their cock.
Anybody by the...
Yeah. Did you ever grab anyone by the cock against their will?
He actually said that.
Oh, no. Well, they were different times.
Or something.
You never sexually harassed anyone.
Hey, boner.
Phil, did you know about this bit on Howard Stern or this interview?
I had heard that before, and it's a classic double standard, right? The leftist is do as I say, not as I do, and he's just an embarrassment.
Well, we'll get to the worst part of it. I bleeped out the COCK because I do appreciate some people don't want to hear that.
Have you?
Have you?
Oh my goodness! You've got such a beautiful. It's some people that are kind of skittish,
right?
Or maybe afraid, and you're trying to persuade. But
do we need to call the police?
What is he saying?
What is he saying? I think we all know what he's saying, and these are the arbiters of morality who have the audacity and the hypocrisy to try to drudge Trump. This was back in the grab him by the PUSSY, which they still run with that lie. He admitted to doing it. No, he didn't. He was describing exactly what George Takei was admitting to there. He was describing the George Takeis and the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, not what he does. Okay. That sums it up for all that we had. In 9 minutes, The Unusual Suspects starts. The link is a redirect through. Phil, for my end, who's watching, where can people find you?
Well, on screen, you can find me on X here at Phil Holloway ESQ, and my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Philip Holloway, and Philip has one L in it. My parents decided to give me the weird spelling of my name, but anyway, obviously I appreciate you doing this together with me. It's always a lot of fun talking with you, and it's been I've been very humbled and honored by the outpouring of support with the followers and the people that are joining the channel. no, like I said, we can cross pollinate, and it makes sense because you have a unique take. Your take is not always the same as mine. Your style is not the same as mine. There's so many of us out here that have interesting things. And I mean, I think people should listen to all law tubers, right? Because the more voices that you hear, the more perspectives that you hear. I know that's how I try to listen to people, even people I disagree with. I try to listen to them because it might make me rethink how I think about something. So I really appreciate you having me on here today. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for coming on. I mean, it's I listen to people who I disagree with because on the one hand, you need to know what the adversary thinks, and you need to build your arguments against it so you can reflexively know what to say when those arguments come up.
Well, unless they block you, like George Takei has blocked me on Twitter, so I can't.
Hold on, he's blocked. He hasn't blocked me yet, and I know,
and I don't. Yeah, I don't get the benefit of his wisdom.
Someone just said Joe Lieberman died, and that's always a thing in the chat where they make that like the that type of meme. And then the one time I didn't believe it, it actually happened. It was the woman from oh no, Joe Lieberman dies at 82. I had no idea he was 82. Yeah, they always, people make it as a joke, like the meme. And then one time they did it, Betty White's dead. And I was like, stop with the meme. And then no, Betty White actually died, and Joe Lieberman died. Yeah.
I always had a lot of respect for Joe Lieberman. Didn't always agree with him on everything, but certainly had a lot of respect for him. And I hate to hear that.
I don't do those the public things like the apology. I mean, first of all, you never know what these people are like personally, and it seems that the only time anybody celebrates a Republican is when they pass away. So it's life. 82 years old is it's a long, healthy life, but everybody always wants more time on this earth. Phil, we're going to end it. So how it works, I'm going to see how this works. We're joint streaming. So I'm going to end the stream, Rumble and Locals. I won't be able to come to Locals afterwards, but I'll do something special for Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And that's it. I'll be live tomorrow. Phil, what's next on your schedule? Do you have a schedule yet?
No, I don't. It remains to be seen. I'm probably not streaming tomorrow. I've got some things. I've got actual court because see, some of us still actually, unlike you, have to actually
I feel bad for you.
Practice law. So so probably won't be streaming tomorrow. And then getting into I'm going to see my mom for Easter. She's 86, and so we've got a lot of that kind of stuff coming up.
Beautiful. And now I'm going to end it with this because Bill Tong is in the house yet again. One last rant for the road, two last rants for the road. Trudeau is living out the modern day version of the Jesuit oath. Well, I'm going to have to go Google the Jesuit oath right after this and see what that is. And King of Bill Tong, and I'm going to hit end stream after this. Good afternoon from Anton's Meat and Eat. Free shipping for your Bill Tong using code VIVA. By the way, it is delicious stuff. I was just eating some before. BillTongUSA.com, AntonUSA.com. Your next Bill Tong shipment is en route, sir. Thank you very much. I'll actually email you privately, Bill Tong, because I got to know. It says to keep it refrigerated, and I'm not necessarily one to respect what they label deadline. So I've been eating stuff anyhow, but I'll email you afterwards. Phil, stick around, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. Locals, I'll be with you in a bit for something else, but it's going to be separate because go watch The Unusual Suspects at 6:00. The redirect link is there. Let them know Viva sent you so that they can appreciate my guest appearances on the show. Phil, stick around. Everybody else out there, I will see you tomorrow on the interwebs.